Hello and welcome to the slightly belated post-Burnley tactical breakdown. I did this in the prior weeks, I think on Monday or Tuesday after Arsenal, after Fulham. And I want to do a little bit of a callback because what we've seen is really interesting. And I think that this was, for me, the best game to analyze. Obviously, United played really well, but it's really cool doing this in the third week in a row after two prior games, looking at the things we discussed. If you remember from those games, what did we discuss first? We discussed first the stepping up of the center back and how they were doing that. Now, against Fulham, we did that quite well, then made a mistake where we conceded in that moment. I'm going to cover it a little bit in this one, but you can see it's becoming a common theme. We're doing it every single game, and we should, and it will continue. The second week against Fulham, you really have to watch that. If you haven't and you're watching this video, go back and watch that. It's timeless. You will see exactly what United needed to do to create more chances, and you will see in this video exactly what we talked about against Fulham, except it going right. And that's the important thing, and that's the part that is really exciting to me. Because I went into this Burnley rewatch going, okay, was it a fluke? Was it just because Burnley were bad? How did we build up? I don't quite remember the same two-step, too deep in the midfield, bounce passes out wide, build up that we did versus Arsenal. Did we abandon it? Did we just go long? How did we actually get the ball up the pitch? Now, I'm not doing a lot of analysis over our final third movements as of yet. I don't find a value in that at this point in time. Once we're settled in the other phases of the game, I think that's something we will see. But in addition, one of the reasons I don't do it and I don't find too much value in it as of yet is because, again, I'm sorry to make this reference, like early Liverpool under Klopp, a lot of the chance creation is made through baited and artificial transitions, fast attacks, long ball, second ball, quick attack, these types of things. It's really similar, and the more I watch, the more I'm convinced it's really similar. So let's take a look at it. We're going to go through a ton of screenshots I've got here. I'm mostly analyzing. A lot of this comes from like the first 15 minutes because I'm trying to break down how United start the game, what their tactical plan is. Usually in the first 15 minutes, you can kind of see that. I think United started off really well. I think they were able to show the way they want to attack, and I think it is something that is sustainable. And when I get to the end, a couple of points I wanted to discuss there, and so show some further stats I've since found after analyzing that kind of back some of this up. So let's get into it. So here we go. First, this was like near the opening kickoff. All I wanted to highlight here is, once again, Matthijs de Ligt stepping up. I also want to note that you can see Burnley trying to do this thing where they get all these players in behind and around this midfield. The same thing, by the way, that was supposedly this master genius tactical plan from Fulham. Burnley did it all game, and they had very little joy, very little luck in there. Again, because look at the wingbacks. United supported the midfield better with the wingbacks coming in a little bit more narrow at times. That was a big reason why this was better, but I just wanted to point that part out to start. Let me make this actually white because it's a little easier to see. Okay, then here's this. This is where a minute 22 in, I say still that I think there's a little bit of work that Bruno needs in order to find the right passes, but I wanted to highlight this because it's the exact thing we talked about versus Fulham. If you look at Burnley here, they've moved a lot of players into this half. You've got 4, you've got 5, you've got 6, 7, 8, and then someone over here makes, I believe, 9. And you've really only got the one defender down in this zone, and you have this 1 versus 2. However, we did a really interesting additional variation that is ultimately so important for United. Ultimately, it is vital for United to have these kinds of variations in attack. And I want to highlight this because Luke Shaw had a monster game. Luke Shaw was really, really good against Burnley. And it's one of those things that kind of like you get split opinions on why. I'm going to show you a few of the things here, and this is one of them. We see Mason Mount has dropped in to, I think this is Mount in this position, doing the normal thing he does. They were really aware of Mason Mount because he's so good at dropping into those pockets. We can see Cunha's dropped off a little bit here. This keeps the defense a little bit honest here. And we can see the usual thing where we end up with two guys free on this side when we get in the buildup, and it goes to Bruno. Now, Bruno had a choice here when you watch it in real time. I know it looks a little bit slower. Dalot had kind of dropped out down in here for buildup, I think. So that helped to kind of drag the defender. This is why this player's all the way back here. Now, Bruno in this instance has that same choice we talked about before. In this case, Luke Shaw's making a blasting run, which is, again, a variation that we can use up the pitch this way. You can see he's essentially free in space. Bruno could have slowed the play down when the pass came to him. He could have gone out to this side as well, would have been okay with that. However, the pass in this case to Luke Shaw is the right one. And this is a variation we didn't see. In the last game, on the same side, where he couldn't, where he didn't make the right pass, we didn't see this attacking extra man run from the back. So he's got actually options on both sides through those wide areas because Burnley are once again packing the middle here. He makes it a first-time pass over to Shaw. He could have slowed it down and gone over this side or turned and gone over this side when you watch it live. But I think in this case, it's fine. Get you down the pitch as quick as possible. In this case, was effective. Now, we see in another minute, 4:32, this is where Bruno does it right again. You can see we've done the same. This is closer to the final third, but you can see how many players we've drawn over to this side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and I believe one over back in this direction. 2, because Dalot is off screen. And Bruno sees it, hits Ahmad out wide. Same thing we're talking about versus Fulham. Same thing you're going to see a million times. This system is beautiful at creating 2v1 opportunities in the wide areas. It does it 50 times a game if you can find them. Bruno gets it out to Ahmad, and I think it results in a decent opportunity. Then I want to highlight this because this is, again, one of the breaking things that they did a lot better in this game. And you're going to find later how it influenced the team, how it influenced the defending more than previously, and how it helped us in different phases of the game, which I thought was really, really quite impressive. So, 1 sec here. Okay, so going back to this. So Luke Shaw is here in this position. Center back is up slightly off screen and off screen. They gave him space early in the game, and as opposed to against Fulham where it was very conservative, you can see again, by the way, look at how they're crowding the middle. The same thing that Fulham did. 5 players around these 2. Same thing as Fulham did. The counter, run it wide. Luke Shaw sees the space, carries it up the pitch. This is his greatest strength. This is the aggression we need from these fullbacks. This is what Lenny Yoro was doing really well in the Europa League last year. This is vital to breaking down and building the play up, that these center backs have a willingness to be aggressive. The defense, when they're cheating and they're not pressing the center backs and they're cheating to block the middle, take it and run. Don't be scared. This is the second time we've seen in 5 minutes Luke Shaw make a run up the pitch. And look, he burns him because he's got some good pace, gets right by him, and look at the numbers that this provides now. Luke Shaw's able to run into space. Cunha provides a sporting run. Mount provides a supporting run, and the buildup is complete. Essentially, we passed into the final third there. Again, an area we have to improve. Here's an area I want to show. As much as Bruno was getting it in this game, Casemiro was not. Casemiro received this ball in a lot of space. It was very weird. He takes it. It comes out to the left, comes around, pass into Casemiro. Again, look at how you've manipulated the defense to open you up in so many ways, right? This player is tied over to Lenny Yoro. Casemiro doesn't even look. He turns and plays a one-time pass into Bruno here. Terrible decision. Terrible decision. Again, Ahmad is up in space. This player is cheating over here towards Mbumo. He should be turning. He had space. I promise you had space and time to turn and make that pass and look out wide. Instead, he instantly one-touches it straight back to Bruno. Bruno is forced to, I think, recycle the ball, and we lose out on a potential attacking opportunity. Here we go. Now, to Bruno's credit, he once again, he can't see this pass as quite well. He's got players potentially in his face. He immediately had to turn this way to open his body. But to his credit, he immediately finds Dallo as the open man because, once again, they're surrounding the middle. So there's an open man on both sides in this case. So Bruno does make the right choice here just to get it out of pressure and all of that. Now, what was this one? Then Dallo hits it back to Bruno, who eventually, I believe here, recycles the ball back to the center back. So again, he does the right thing there, I think, in this case, but we just needed to be better. Casemiro was the one. Another opportunity. Now, here's an interesting one because, again, as I mentioned, you could see Luke Shaw early on. They weren't really pressing him. Then they started to press the center backs. You can see how high they're getting up on here. They started to press the center backs. Bruno was finding the gaps in here. He missed on this pass from Lenioro, didn't find him, but it is a good pass. You can see Mbumo's dragged the defender here. Bruno's properly dropped into the gap. If he gets this, he can turn. He can send it up the field to just get it out of play quickly, or just turn out of pressure, turn this way if he can, even though there's a press here. Either way, the pass is just missed, unfortunately, from Lenny in that instance. But once again, right idea, variation, the midfield splitting. And you can see once again how much they're blocking the middle. Bruno drops out wide in the right position. He was really helping quite a lot. We would just miss the pass, and that's one of those things. It's just a matter of execution. Now, I still saw a lot of things in defending that bothered me, and which I think were part of the reason we resulted in a goal. I don't think these are anything but individual issues. When I watch Casemiro, when you get frustrated about this line getting so deep in general, this is the problem. There's no reason for Casemiro to be this deep in this situation. He's almost automatically dropping into the back line, I think, like he's used to a back four, when he has no need to be. And a player will end up floating into this position here, and then he has to rush out to try to get them, and usually he misses because it's too slow, and that resulted in some chances for the opposition in this game. He's too deep. This organization over here between Shaw and Dallo was not great defensively. They were oftentimes sitting in each other's laps. So now, this is what I'm talking about. Casemiro is sitting so deep, he has to then rush forward as the play moves to try to close down Ugo Chukwu, who immediately bypasses him and runs right by him. This is a problem. This is a problem that has not been solved yet. Of course, then you look at the numbers. This forces Luke Shaw to take the inside route here to cover him, which pushes Dallo onto, I think it's Hannibal, over here. But that means that there's an extra player out wide that they can pass it to. And they were finding that space quite a lot. And it looks like it will look like it's a consequence of the back line, but it's actually a consequence of Casemiro. Getting bypassed too easily, not picking up his man, forcing a center back into a decision where they're ending up covering a midfielder, which means the line shifts and you're ending up with this extra guy out wide. That's an issue we have to solve that I think we'll kind of look at a little bit later as well. Here, once again, I want to point out again the variations in the buildup. In this instance, I'm trying to think. I think the ball is right here, flying through the air. Lenioro's trying to find the long pass into Mbumo as well. So they started to press, but this is why this is important. You're going to start to see big gaps in the midfield for even the opposition when they press like that. What happens off of this, from what I believe, is a long ball comes into Mbumo. We actually end up winning the second ball off of this play. Let me see. Yeah, we win the second ball of this play, and then we make the pass to Mbumo. And I want to note that second ball thing, because they're starting to press really high, and as our back line is scaring them and they're following, we're ending up with a lot of situations where we get gaps, where the midfield are stepping up and winning the second ball because Burnley are so spread out. So in this case, this is a beautiful move. So close, actually, to a one-on-one with the keeper. You might not see it here yet, but you will. Defender is dragged out by Mbumo. We've seen that time and time again, that's one of the ways that Ruben Amorim likes to go. Now, Ahmad has a couple of options here. If this defender bites, he can go long. This pass from Mbeumo can come into Cunha, who can send him through. Alternatively, if this is a striker, he might run into this gap, and Ahmad will go short so he can find him. In this case, Cunha comes short because he's more used to that. Mbeumo finds him with the pass, and then watch the next frame. It's so close to working. Cunha cuts inside, finds Ahmad, who's looking to hit the first-time ball over the top. You can see Mbeumo's beating him. Mount's beating him. This is a 2v0 if it goes off correctly. The pass is a second late. The run is a second early. He's a little, almost 2 ahead of the defender in this case, but the pass is a second late. Ahmad maybe could have come a step closer as well to Cunha. This is just a timing thing. When we get this right, 10 drops over to the 9, over to the wing back, and Mbeumo making that vertical run. That's going to be cash money. That has been that's a typical Sporting Amorim move that we need to see improving and getting a bit better. So it was a variation in the build-up again that we saw work that seemed to be almost successful there and could have resulted in an attack. That's just about getting the timing right. That's the most important thing in that situation. So, that's what we need to see more of and all of that. Then, again, another variation. We've seen the 10s dropping. In this case, we see the 9 drop in. We see the wing back drop all the way. Lenny Yoro finds Ahmad. This is one of the things where it's just going to be down to, can they do it individually? Receiving with pressure on his back. Ahmad beats the man, but takes a little bit of a loose touch here. If he doesn't, and he's able to turn out of that pressure, you can see by how we've moved here. Whoops, excuse me. You can see by how we've moved here. Look at all this space for him to run into, and you've got some 1v1 opportunities. So he turns out of it really well, but takes a bit of a heavy touch. Luckily gets fouled here, but he could have found Bruno. He could have turned up and then found Cunha running down. He could have found Mbeumo in the middle, who would win this foot race as well. There's a lot of things that could have happened here should he have successfully turned out of that press. But just something needs to get, that's just winning your duel. He did, and we will, and we have good duelers in those, and especially on that right side and taking the press, taking the ball with the press at their back. He's just missed the touch after that, or we probably would have been clean through yet again. So that was a good moment too. And I really liked that. That was another good sign of things to come. Then here's again Bruno getting the ball in this position that we've seen a few times before. Like we talked about versus Burnley, there's 4, 5, 6, 7 players and a couple off screens. They actually have they have their man marked here, but you can see Mbeumo's in space. Now, one against the center back. You're going to take Mbeumo every time. Bruno hits him through. Mbeumo receives it, cuts back. That's when he hits that curler that the keeper saves. Really good moment, actually, and a really great chance created from that. So, again, Bruno, by getting that pass right, which he didn't in that game against Fulham on like 10 occasions. I think it was 12 I counted. In the first 11 minutes, 3 times I think he got it right, created 3 good attacks and one of the best chances of the game. Here again, just a couple minutes after, once again, same move over and over. It is near unbeatable if we can get it right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 defenders and another down here. This time it's Mount who finds Mbeumo through the lines, gets him in on goal, gets him a shot. Again, could have been a goal. Just a minute later, could have been a goal. So really, really impressive stuff up through that 15 minutes. Finding that outlet ball, which was there all game against Fulham. You can go back and watch that tactic. It was there all game against Fulham. We just didn't find it. It was there all game against Burnley, and we found it. And it was one of our biggest ways of getting through. So this genius way of defending, no, it's there. If they pack the middle, if they outnumber the 2, you have that wide area open all game. Again, it's gonna be the way we progress the ball. I would once again speak about Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool a little bit, but there's a few things that happened. I skipped to a bit later because we saw quite a lot of it. Here again, you'll see we're not really getting outnumbered. Let's make this white again because it's a little more visible. We're not really getting outnumbered. We have the numbers in the midfield. Again, the midfield kind of stepping up. But here's an issue. In this instance, Ugochukwu gets it here. Again, Casemiro, in this case, I think it's just a mistake in organization. Again, something they have to improve. But you can see Casemiro's here, and in the next frame, he gets completely bypassed here. Doesn't really, he's always so far off the midfielder, it leads to issues. He's able to find Hannibal through. This, of course, means that Dalot is once again here, and there's a man out wide that's kind of off screen that leads to an attack. Now, another variation here, as I was kind of saying, you can see that they really started pressing the center backs, and that's going to be really important because after they let the center backs free and Shaw was running up the pitch, they started pressing, but they also have to worry about that vertical threat. So it was leaving big gaps in the middle. Lenioro going long in this instance, pressed. I think we actually end up winning the second ball. We started winning a lot of second balls in this instance. I don't remember exactly what this was. This is just one where I think, again, one of the bigger things is just individual defending. Dalot's out here isolated in space. Casemiro kind of runs over to support him, but neither of them actually block the pass. This happens a lot. Dalot on 1v1 defending, when he's going backwards, he never blocks the pass. The ball comes into Hannibal here. De Ligt here's where I think this is just disorganization. There's no need for us to be conceding chances in these positions. There's only 1, 2, 3 players. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players there. And then, maybe the extra 6 and 7. We've got plenty of defenders. Some of them are just being a little clueless. In this case, De Ligt kind of loses his head, drops way too deep. For some reason, leaves Hannibal wide open in the center of the box. No idea why. Again, the pass is allowed in, and he sends it over the bar, fortunately. But a lot of the things we conceded seem to be just individual mistakes defending that we've got to sniff out. Here again, want to show they're kind of in the buildup. They pass it through. Again, we're not outnumbered in the midfield. They tried to do the same thing, but because this is, I think, De Ligt in this case, stepping up really, really high with Shaw down here, they're not really able to find any kind of gaps. And then even after this case, you can see Shaw's kind of waiting down here ready to go. They pass it up here and they try to play it in to a guy who's standing next to Shaw, but Shaw comes up aggressively, wins the ball, knocks it over there, and we're okay. Our press was really good. Now, we got into further variations. Now, as we saw in a couple of the previous ones, Lenioro was getting pressed. So in this case, instead of just darting over and trying to go long, he moved the ball backwards. But after, you can see that all of the defense is moving towards Lenny to kind of squeeze that press. Same movement with Mbumo dropping deep. Everything looks the same, but this case he goes back to Altay Bayindir. You can't really see it, but the ball is in the air right here. Bayindir goes long, and you can see they're all like, oh shit, turn around, go the other way, because we've sucked the defense in. Dalot's wide open. The pass finds him, drops him on his head. He's able to head it right over into Mason Mount, who is open, who finds this pocket really, really well. And this leads again. Look, here we go again. Mason Mount is able to find Ahmad out wide in, again, a 2v1 situation. He turns, looks upfield, finds Ahmad out wide. It's there all game. And this is another build-up variation. So we went short to the 10, around, back, up, and through. We went long to the middle to knock down to get second balls. We went out wide to the center backs, dragged the press, back to the keeper, over to the other side, and it creates that through onto the other side. So we've been doing crazy numbers of variation in this game based on how they are playing. And as we're getting more used to how teams react and how, when they press us, there you have it. Once again, in this case, we go up. I want to show this because Hannibal gets really tight to Luke Shaw, who goes long. And what does this do? This is really, really important because I drew all of this before I even saw this stat. But United were getting so good at winning. let me get this back on the right thing. So good at winning these second balls. This is from the pass from Shaw. You can see that they're all touch tight to the attackers here. Look at how deep their line is, right? And the reason they were doing that is because we had so much joy in getting through in behind from Mbumo in that first half. Oh my God, what is going on with my mouse here? Apologies for the annoyance there. Anyway, you can see how far apart that front line and the back line are. We're creating gaps. And what does this mean? They go to defend it. They're really, really worried here about Mason Mount. So this player, because Mason Mount's dropping in all day, so they're going to defend that. So when they block this, the ball comes to the midfield, we pick it up. That was happening over and over and over again. This time, Casemiro makes the right choice, immediately looks out wide, sends it over, and we get an attack because, again, they've overloaded on this side. So very, very similar, again, I will note, to the way Jurgen Klopp and Liverpool played, progressing. There was the ability to progress the ball via going long, to knock it down and bring it into the middle. One of the things that helped this is because Joshua Zirkzee came on, and will be helped by having Benjamin Šeško come on as well. Cunha does a lot of things really well from the 9, but he's not a 9. He's not really an aerial threat in there. Obviously, second goal comes from Zirkzee knocking it on over to Dalot to get it through. But that having the big, tall striker to be able to deal with the long balls has drastically improves the number of things that the opposition has to worry about and our variations in the buildup that we can do. This was a lot of fun, honestly. This was such a fun game to analyze. Then we see here, look again, they surround the midfield, this supposedly genius tactic. This is the start of the second half. They stop pressing the center backs again. So what does De Ligt do? Wham, sends it long to Dalot running by because the wide areas are always open and we get straight in. And that's actually how that second goal happened. You can see this here. This one comes from De Ligt. The previous one was direct onto Xerxes' head over to Dalot, but they kept trying to do the thing Fulham did of load the middle, and it didn't work. In fact, it led to our best attacks. Like I said against Fulham, it would if we just made the right decisions in that game. And this was a huge part of our success. Now, I want to point out here, because this is where we struggled a little bit. We made that halftime change. Xerxes came on. Who else came on? Kobbie Mainoo came on at halftime. Xerxes came on early. Mainoo came on at halftime. We had a bad stretch here where we could go that long ball to Dalot, as you can kind of see here, but Bruno up in the 10 was like confusing. It was confusing to the team, and it actually resulted in a lot of disorganization. And it was kind of the worst spell of the game from 50 to 65 minutes or so till Benjamin Šeško came on is when we conceded as well 2 goals in that span. And part of it's this. If you look at Bruno compared to like what Mason Mount would do here, he's dropped in, but Mason Mount does something really, really interesting, which I think is very, very important, okay, to keeping the organization of this in place. Mason Mount will drop in narrow, and that will mean the midfield can go a little bit wide. So if you swap the places of Mainoo and Bruno here, you'll see what I mean. Mainoo being Bruno, when he drops, he kind of drops wide and lingers. When Mount would drop in, he wouldn't drop in as deep, and then he'd be ready to dart up the pitch. So in this case, it almost works because we get it through to Dalot, and then it's Kobbie Mainoo making the run. But the problem is what you would want here, and you can see Bruno's kind of lingering back from the 10. What you would want here is Bruno running forward, Mainoo around here, so that you have an extra attacker, someone to deal with in there. So Mainoo makes the good 10s run, but it doesn't quite work. Now, once again, I want to point this out. This is the next instance here. Bruno's dropping really deep, and the difference between Bruno dropping deep and Mbumo dropping deep and Mount dropping deep is because Bruno's slow. They don't worry about him. So Kobbie is kind of drifting into his zone. Bruno's drifting over there. We started getting bad in this instance where we kind of like, we weren't manipulating the defense as well. They were able to just sit in a bit of a back line here. Again, Bruno, when he drops really wide. You'd want to kind of flip these and have Kobbie out here, Bruno in the pocket, so that he can turn and get into the box really quickly, but we're not doing that. Here again, this is an instance where it should be working. If it's a 10, what would happen here? Dallo comes into the middle, into the pocket, is found. Bruno should have been sprinting towards this, past this high line, dragging the defender because we've got a 1v1 here, but he kind of just lingers, and there's no attack there. Again, I understand why. I'm not even trying to give him a hard time. Bruno actually did really well in the 8 this game, but I'm really understanding why he doesn't want him in the 10. He does not drop and dart, like Mbumo, like Mount. He drops and lingers, and waits for runners because that's his main skill set. In this case, what was it? Here we go. So Bruno drops in really, really deep here into the 10. Really, really deep here into the 10. This one, where it actually works out, he drops into the spot. Instead of like going way out wide, he actually opens up the space for, I think it's Diogo Dallo. Yeah, Diogo Dallo to make this run pass. Now, ironically, this is actually how we concede, but it's a good move. Pass comes into him. Casemiro drops in the pocket. He's able to find Casemiro. Again, up, back, through. It's basic football. Just different variations that a lot of teams do. Casemiro sends Dallo over the top here. Got the wrong picture here. The wrong one showed up. But essentially, he sends Dallo through to about here. Dallo tries to flick it. Second game in a row. Loses the ball. It goes back to Burnley. And they end up scoring a goal off of this move a few seconds later, like a minute later. It's frustrating. He's got to stop doing those mistakes. They're very frustrating. He could have been through running down the pitch. Instead, he loses it trying to like flick it forward. They get a throw in. They move it around. The defense is a bit unorganized. I don't know exactly what's going wrong at the back here. It's just pure disorganization on this play if you watch it. I think De Ligt is actually the one who should have stayed out here because he was on that man in that instance, but he didn't. Regardless, once again, just some poor organization in there. So now, again, you're seeing 2-2. This is where I was very frustrated because we obviously got back to 2-2. I'm still talking about Bruno. Why is he here? He needs to be on the back line because then nothing's happening. They're happy to sit in front of Bruno. They did not follow Bruno because they know he doesn't have the pace to get up, and run through them. If this is like Mbumo and then he starts running at full speed at you, he's going to run right through you. Regardless, Bruno in the wrong spot here. We have too many people. This is not helping us in the defending. So it was not great in the 10s here. This did not create an advantageous situation for us here. I meant to, I feel like once again, it blipped the image here, but what we got right is, again, one more moment I just want to show where Bruno dropped deep. I think this image was supposed to be one where right after Šeško comes on, 5 minutes later, Bruno receives the ball around here in the 8. Boom, he turns, launches it down the pitch once again to Mbumo. That was money all game. He was finding that pass. So that was really, really exciting to me. So that kind of breaks it down. That kind of ends the look at this. Again, the biggest thing that I will note in this game is that when we manipulate the defense, we were actually finding the right play. That's the biggest thing you want to see. We found the right play. We found the right ball. We made the right move in defensively for what we needed to do. We actually found the passes we were supposed to find. When we would move the defense around, we were able to turn it. And there was a lot of variations in the buildup. I kind of want to show it, but I want to look at some stats here that's really interesting. United are actually top of the league in second ball win rate percentage, and I don't think it's particularly an accident. We have a very we play physical football, but at the same time, we have kind of slow players and all of that, especially in the middle. Another interesting stat, by the way, that showed up here was that United have the most passes into the strikers by far, like game-breakingly far in terms of how many passes they get into the striker. So we just need to finish our chance. But I wanted to show this second ball thing because it all came from the way that we started to vary in the way that we built up play. So once again, we saw that, when teams wanted to kind of press us, Let's take a look here. We saw a lot of times Bruno being wide open in this position. So, they would do different things, right? A lot of man marking and all of that. But they would do different things in here. So when they sat off, right, when they were sitting off on the press, what did we do? Luke Shaw ran up the pitch, just carried. Aggressive center backs, when they sat off to block off all these angles and passing ranges, just carry the ball up the pitch. Just run past them. Dowlow would tuck in a little. Shaw go past him. We saw that. We saw the one variation, which was really good, which was really, really nice, which is the pass into the 10. 9 comes over as well. This can be done in a few different ways. It can be done with the 8. In an ideal world, it's the 8. Pass goes into the 8. 9 can run into there, but because it was Cunha, he ended up kind of fulfilling the role of Bruno in this case, dropping here, sending it in there, and going up and through. So what really happened here was twofold. When they didn't press, our center backs ran. When they did press, they were so scared of our verticality because when we would move the ball into these areas and suck everybody in onto the side in terms of the buildup, and when we'd manipulate the press like we talked about to do this, where they'd all have to shift over to defend, where we went to the center back, to the wing back, dropping the 10 in, this forced the defense into these kind of ranges and moved the ball around and found the 8. We were finding this pass over and over and over again, right? This pass out wide, we were actually finding it into this 2v1 that we've seen over here. So they got really scared of the verticality that was provided. So they had really two choices, which was one, drop off the press entirely, which they could do. They could have dropped off pressing entirely and sat in. But again, the center backs were being a lot more aggressive with pushing up the pitch in that case. So what did they do instead is we started going long. They would press, and because they were so scared of this verticality coming forward, the runs from in behind, the pressure up the pitch, there's huge gaps in here. And Bruno and Casemiro were finding these gaps and winning the second balls and then sending us into attack. So a lot of variations we found. The basic pass into the 10s, turn, find it, send it up the pitch, that was there. The other send it long into there was there. And then we saw the final kind of variation as well, which is why you need the keeper to be able to pass sometimes. When they pressed and they all scooted over to this side and they tried to follow into the middle, and they tried to block off these zones, then again, we saw that instance where I'm losing the numbers of the defenders, where we pass back to the keeper, send it long into this side. What does that do? Requires them to all kind of drop in, quickly try to shift over to this side to defend, and you end up in this 2v1 situation again on this side, which we were able to turn and find. So a lot of variations in the buildup that we're starting to see, a lot of things that we want to see, but the biggest feature is, once again, move the defense to one side. However it's done, there's like 10 different ways this can happen. Move the defense to one side, get in behind. The verticality is an important part. The second, being able to add the second ball into this by sending it long, knocking it down, and winning when they press the center backs was a big part of what was successful there. Not every pass from Lenny or Shaw was complete. In fact, a lot of them weren't when they were sending it up, but we were able to win the knockdowns because striker in there, as well as, the gaps that they created because they were worried about the verticality while also trying to press. And that's one of the big reasons I've said a striker is such an important part of this team, because you need that vertical threat. Now, right now, Brian Mbumo, with his insane work rate, speed, and all of that, is doing both. He's dropping in, and he's providing insane vertical threat. Well, add Benjamin Šeško in, where he can win the high balls and provide the vertical threat that Xerxes not quite providing, and you're going to get even bigger gaps in here. There's almost no way to defend it if you can pull it off right. It's a numbers game, and United, if you press, their best bet is press the center backs, close all those gaps down, and then you have usually gaps that will open up in the middle to knock down those balls now and win the second balls. The big question is when we play a team that plays back three, naturally plays man to man around the back and covers all the wide areas. We're gonna need this. Is the biggest way to beat that is we're gonna need the center backs to be able to run up the pitch like we were seeing today, because they're gonna end up in 1v1 situations. And the same with the midfield. They're gonna have to turn and carry the ball up the pitch because the wide areas are going to essentially be marked, and we're really going to need that long ball into the striker because he's going to be one-on-one with a center back all game. He should be able to win those knockdowns, hit the midfield, and then go over the top as well. But very, very promising signs. All the things we saw against Fulham were there against Burnley. The way that they defended, the way they tried to overload the middle, they did the same things as Fulham. But we had the solutions this time. We were able to vary it. We found the passes out wide instead of just recycling the ball when we created advantageous positions. As the team executes better, it's going to get better, and faster and faster and faster. And that's what I'm hopeful for, and why I think that they are more than just it being Burnley. We could have done all of this against Fulham just as well if we'd made the right decisions. So those are my thoughts on it. That's my breakdown for now. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you saw, if you agree with some of my assessments here. But yeah, I was really, really pleased in doing the rewatch to see that all the things are there. And I will say, I really get why he wants Bruno deep. I see that if he makes that right choice, and he was. I still have a lot of worry about Casemiro. Did not see a lot from him in that game. I think Kobbie Mainoo could do the job just as well, and did in the last 30 minutes of that game. So that's what I've got. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications on. See you in the next one.